pose a question about say something?
You could pose it.
Huh? Say better?
Go ahead. The whole world is watching you right
Oh, wow. Okay, so it's a big schus to be sitting here with Rabbi Simon Jacobson, one of the world leaders in teaching the Rebbe's Torah all over the world, and with Shloimy, who's teaching Chassidus, Nigla, all over the world. It's really it's a humbling experience to be here. So Shloimy asked me to share a few words. I spoke before in 770. They asked me to speak, which that was even obviously more humbling to be able to speak in 770. So I shared a sikha from the Rebbe. The Rebbe spoke on Gimmul Tamuz, Shabbos Pashas Koirach, in the year Tavshin Memches. So the Rebbe says over there in the sikha, and he explains that Gimmul Tamuz, the Friedrich Rebbe, that was the Haschalos Hagula, that was the beginning of the redemption. In other words, the Rebbe explains that even though if you look, the fact is when Gimmul Tamuz came about for the Friedrich Rebbe, he was told he was leaving Taka prison, but where was he going? He was going to Gullus. And the Rebbe says that going into Gullus, he brings in the Chinuch, that the Chinuch says going into Gullus is almost like Tsar Misa. So what's the big chiddush? But later on, what happened was when the Poil and Yud Beis Yud Gimel Tammuz happened. So the Rebbe uses the term Gloi Milsum Afreya. It's a learning terminology that it was revealed from the beginning that they went out on Gimel Tammuz, that was Aschal Sagula. So even though Beinayim Gashmin, when you look in your own physical eyes, what's Gimmul Tamuz? He was going to Gullus. It's a terrible thing. But afterwards, it turns out that Gimmul Tamuz was a Schalt Degula. So Rebbe says, a revolutionary idea, I think, that you must say that Gimmul Tamuz is greater than Yud Beis Gimel Tammuz, even though L'Poel Yud Beis Gimel Tammuz was the ultimate redemption for the Friedrich Rebbe. And he explains it based on this week's parsha. So what does it say in this week's parsha? In this week's English, in this week's Torah portion, it says that this week's Torah portion is called Parshas Koirach. So Rebbe asked a simple question. We know Koirach was Taka Yid, but he was a Chayta, he was a sinner. Not only was he a sinner, he didn't do tshuva. So how do you go ahead and you call the whole Torah portion after someone's a sinner and didn't do tshuva? My high. So the Rebbe explains, and he says that the truth is there's two ways to look at somebody. You can look at somebody b'chitzonius, the way they talk, the way they behave, the way they dress, and all the negative stuff. Or you can look into who the person really is. Let's look at Koirach. Let's look at his essence as an neshama. What was Koirach's drive in life? What was his mission in life? Koirach wanted to be what? He wanted to be a Kohen Gadol. So if you look at the fact that a Yid, again, even though he's a Chayta, the fact that he wants to be a Kohen Gadol, that's huge. I mean, how many of us have a dream, kids want to be firemen, policemen, but Koirach wanted to be the Kohen Gadol. He wanted to be the high priest. Not only that, the Rebbe brings some Kut Torah, that the Alter Rebbe says that Koirach was a Levi. Now, Koirach saw the future, and he knows in the future that the Leviim are going to be Kahanim. So not only Koirach, what he wanted to do is he wanted to usher in already what's going to be like Mashiach comes. Let's start right now. Why do we have to wait till Mashiach comes? Let's make Mashiach right now. Like we all want. We want Mashiach now. He says, okay, let's make it happen right now. Let me go ahead and let the Leviim become Kahanim. So obviously you see two powerful things about Koirach. One is that he wanted to be the Kohen Gadol, and number two is he wanted to bring in Mashiach's time. So if you look at that, Koirach is huge. And based on that, that's what we're explaining. That's why the parsha is called Koirach. Because even though B'chitzayni is all the negative stuff you can look at, what do we look at? We look at his neshama. His neshama, he wanted to be a Kohen Gadol, he wanted to bring in Mashiach's time, and therefore, and that's why the Torah portion is called Koirach. And the Rebbe brings, the Rashi actually says that Yofen Nedrashas, the third portion is Yofen Nedrashas. The Rebbe teaches that's exactly what the Medrash is saying is don't look at it in a negative way. Koirach is a sin. Why are you looking at it that way? Yofen Nedrashas. Look at the beauty of it. And the Rebbe finishes off and he says a beautiful lesson. You see from here that what happens when you meet a Yid in the street and you look at the Yid and you say, oh my gosh, this guy, the Rebbe uses the term shel. The guy is in shel tachtia. He's like down in the sewer. He's like, whatever, on all levels. He's not up to par. So you look at such a Jew. So the Rebbe says, in powerful Lashonis, he says, that the Yid that you're looking at in a negative way tells you, Yofen Nedrashas, he tells it, make a drisha kira. Go look into my neshama, you'll see that you're looking at this the chitzonius. But when you look into who I am, you'll see Yofen, you'll see I have a beautiful neshama. Like the Rebbe says, we know it says in the Gemara that everyone is B'nai Yisrael. And Afal Pi Sheichot Yisrael means even if someone that sins was still on the level of what? Of Yisrael. So based on that, the Rebbe explains what's the whole idea of Koirach. Koirach's lesson is don't look at the external, don't look at the Levushim, the Chitzonius, and all the negative stuff. Start learning to look at the beauty of every single Yid. Based on this, Rebbe explains why Gimmul Tamuz is higher than Yud Beis Gimel Tamuz. And he says like this, what's the whole idea of Gimmul Tamuz? Like we explained a little before. Gimmul Tamuz is that if you look B'chitzonius, what happened when Gimmul Tamuz happened? Yeah, the Frierdiker Rebbe was going to Galus, Etzar Misa, etc. But that's if you look B'chitzonius. But now that you have hindsight 2020, what do you realize? That Gimmul Tamuz was Takat Aschalos Agula. The internal part was Aschalos Agula. However, when it comes to Yud Beis Gimmul Tamuz, you're going to say, well, he was free L'Poil. So Rebbe says something fascinating. He says like this, because what happens when you reach Yud Beis Gimmul Tamuz, what happens then? So then you look at the fact that he was in Galus. So why was he in Galus? The answer is you read that Tzorech Aliyah. Yud Beis Gimel Tamuz only teaches you that it was a Yerida, and Tzorech Aliyah. So Galus was a Yerida. But Gimel Tamuz teaches you, no, on the contrary, that basically it's all about, it's right there. So I think the Rebbe is teaching us a simple lesson for each and every one of us, how we have to look at a Yid. We have to look at a Yid, Yofen and Drashash. We have to look, into the essence of the person. So actually I'll share an interesting story, what happened. Everyone likes, current stories. I have a guy, Ibal Abasamine, he always tells me, Rabbi, you need a current story. Don't tell me from 200 years ago, 100 years. I want a recent story. So I had actually an interesting story recently that happened. We had a hurricane, last, in the San Medallion in southwest Florida. So afterwards, they came from the government from Washington to see what they can do to help, etc. So one day they came with a whole mashlachas, with different high-level people. We had a meeting in our Chabad house. And it's funny, so my son was sitting there, so he tells me, I think the head guy is Jewish. So I said, really? what do you think? He told me, I think he's Jewish. I said, okay. So after the meeting, I turned to him and I said to him, do you mind, because you have to realize these are official people from Washington. You can't just go ahead and start and talk to the guy, start getting all in personal stuff. I said, do you mind? He said, okay. Do you have permission? I can ask you a personal question. He said, sure, go ahead, you can ask me. I said, are you Jewish? So he goes, yes, I'm Jewish. So I said, okay. Do you mind, I can ask you a second question. I said, have you put on tefillin in your life? So he goes, no, I never put on tefillin, I never had a bar mitzvah, he tells me. So then I said, one more question, Gimmul Tamuz. Can I ask you my last third question? Would you be okay if we put on tefillin? So he says, I never put on tefillin, but no problem, we'll put on tefillin. So I said, okay, we had a meeting in the library. I said, okay, for putting on tefillin, let's go into the shul. So then all the people that came was with him, the whole mashlachas, they said, could we join? Could we be part of this thing? So I said, sure, with pleasure. So they all came into the shul. And he was an older guy. He was 74 years old. Now he's 74 years old, never had a mitzvah in his life, never put on tefillin. And put on yarmulke, put on tefillin. The guy was crying. Pashat Demois. Mamash, he was very emotional. Put on tefillin. And then after I said to him, what's your Hebrew name? So he tells me, I'll tell you the truth is, I don't have a Hebrew name. So I said to him, no, let's pick a name. What can we pick? Anyway, the pilot came up, his name was Craig, picked the name Moshe, gave him the name Moshe. I said, but listen, in order to solidify it, I need you to come back Shabbos. Kriyas Torah, Aliyah, let's do it the whole way. You need a full bar mitzvah. So he tells me, I'll come back for Shabbos. That's what he tells me. Okay. This is months ago. Anyway, the pilot, he never came back for Shabbos. Okay. I called him a couple months later. I said, hey, Craig, Moshe, he told me you're coming back. He said, yeah, what happened was I was out of town, etc. Okay. What happened was literally this past Shabbos, Friday before Shabbos, this past Friday, like almost a week ago, I see he's calling me. I was put on the phone, I couldn't answer. He leaves me a voicemail. He says, Rabbi, how are you? This is Craig, Moshe, the one that bar mitzvah. I want to know what time his service is tomorrow. So I was on the phone with an important phone call, so I text him back, and I tell him like this, Kabbalah, Chassidus is 9 o'clock in the morning, because you have a class in Chassidus every Shabbos. That's the highlight of the week, Chassidus class. Chassidus is 9 a.m., and davening is 10 o'clock. He tells me, what time his service is? I said, service is 10 o'clock, I'm going to call you soon. I got off the phone, I called him up, I said, hey, how are you? He says, yeah, what's going on? I said, I'm back in town with my friend lady, whatever, and I want to come tomorrow for services. I said, listen, the way it works in Chabad, you don't just walk into services. 9 o'clock Chassidus, and 10 o'clock is davening. So come for 9 o'clock Chassidus. You learn some Kabbalah, some mysticism, and then you'll come 10 o'clock for davening, etc. Okay, sure enough, next morning, Friday, Shabbos morning, 9 o'clock, he shows up. Him and his lady friend, they come for Chassidus, they sat there, they're teaching a mayim for the Rebbe, they were sitting and listening, and after the shir, with the shirs, everyone sits together. After the shir, we go to the davening, and he sits over there and he's davening. So he didn't put on the talis. Anyway, then the Poyel came for Kiryas Torah, so you have the Kohen gets the first Aliyah, the Levi, and then I told the Gabbai, give him, the guy sitting over there, give him the Shlishi Aliyah. He goes over to him, he says to him, call you for Aliyah? He says, yeah, what's your name? He calls him his name, and he got the Shlishi Aliyah, which is interesting is that the Shlishi Aliyah was, last week was Chav Chasivan. Right? And in that Aliyah, the Rebbe speaks on the Sikh about the Yigdol Koyach Hashem, Chav Ches, Koyach, was that Aliyah. Interesting, Stam, another small thing, but it's Negeya. Anyway, after he had his Aliyah, so after the Aliyah, we made him Yishaberach with our mitzvah, and he was crying, everyone was singing and dancing. It was very, very beautiful, very, very nice. So what happened was, after davening, I went over to him, I said to him, mind if I ask you a personal question? Like I know, why do you come this Shabbos? So he tells me, Rabbi, you don't remember, you bar mitzvahed me. And we put on tefillin on me, and you gave me a Hebrew name, and I promised you I was going to come back for Shabbos. I was promised I was going to come back for Shabbos. I forgot. I remember every guy he told. I forgot his problem. Anyway, it was his problem. So he said, I told you I was coming back for Shabbos, and I was planning coming for Shabbos. What happened was, unfortunately, I had 3 heart attacks. Like the Gimmul Tamuz, 3 heart attacks. And they put in, and they put in 4 stents. Nisan, Iyar, Sivan, Tamuz, the 4th month, right? Like the Kabbalah stuff. And he put in 4 stents. And I remembered I told you I was coming back for Shabbos. The first opportunity I had, now that I got better, I came now to here to have my Aliyah and etc. But anyway, what did I get? What's the lesson of the story that I took from it? And many lessons of the story. The lesson I took from the story was that we had a meeting, right? And they were sitting in the meeting. I didn't see the guy was Jewish. Why? Because I was busy, whatever, with the meeting. My son was able to see Yofen the Dreshus. He was able to see, take away the meeting and all the other stuff. He saw there's a Yid over here. And when he saw there's a Yid, he said, then we were able to put on tefillin, he had a bar mitzvah, and Baruch Hashem was a big, big Kiddush Hashem. And the fact is, before Gimmul Tamuz, he had his bar mitzvah, and he was very, very happy. So we should help us. We should see Yofen and Dreshus. We should see the beauty in every single Yid, and we should see the beauty in like Deborah says, that the beauty in Gullus also. There is some beauty in Gullus. But the Kudus, Rebbe finish off the Sikha, just to finish off, to give it a Shloimy and Yonder, Rebbe says, when you talk about Gula, that will bring the ultimate Gula. Anyway, Shkoyach is Shkoyach. Thank you.
Okay. Beautiful. Let's sing our final nigun. We take a half between one father and the next, yeah?
What's the next? What? We're on a roll. I think this is the 3rd or 4th February we did this year.
It's beautiful. Bemison beautiful.
Yeah.
Very, very nice, very nice. Shabbos Achmei Yachad. You have music on? No?
Yeah, nigun.
Very, very nice.
And I'll just say a closing.
Yeah, about that.
Let's do the nigun.